Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm your host Joshua Gibson, and I'm not joined today, sadly. Sensing a bit of sadness and despair and loneliness from not having Max Ada on the podcast. But luckily, we're actually joined by someone much more joyous and bright and positive, Dani Myers Glynn. Dani, how are you?
I'm well. I will right out the gate say I'm not sad that Max is not here. His loss. His loss.
Max can catch these hands.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, not sorry.
His loss. He's gonna be about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted to record this podcast with Max. He's busy currently, so this is going to take the place of the show we were going to record. But the reason we wanted to record this in the first place was, so Dani and I have done a podcast. We did a podcast, I think like 50 episodes ago. Was that a year ago?
Yeah, right before Nationals last year.
Yeah. Wow. So right before Nationals last year. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I'd really recommend you check it out, because Dani kind of talks about, her experiences with powerlifting and strength sports and lifting weights and everything that goes along with that, being a female, being whatever, like having this really special role, and being a really kind of special person who gets to lift weights at a really high level and do so really well. We talked about it in that podcast, so I'd really implore people to check it out. I think it's episode 210. I wanted to bring her back on so we could kind of do an update. Now we have two nationals to talk about. We have kind of what has occurred during and then in between, and what's going to kind of happen now heading forward. That we want to talk about that from like a programming standpoint, how to improve someone's squat and what kind of like technical things we might be looking at, how we could program around them and work to accommodate, her having done it for, 4 to 5 years now and being really strong, being very strong, and then needing to improve even more to kind of crack that next level. And then talk about what it's like to kind of move around weight classes, 2 to 3 weight classes, and also to be really, to perform really well while you're doing that. So we want to talk about those two things, and then how the Coach Logic platform has kind of been integrated to make that easier, for both of us, I think. So that's like a preview of the episode. And before we begin, Dani, maybe you can kind of fill us in on where you've been, what you've been up to. For everyone who listened to that episode and kind of they follow along on Instagram, but they need to like fill in the details, like maybe you can kind of help them out.
Yeah, I can just kind of like tell what I've been doing for the last year, maybe.
Yeah, sounds great.
So since the last podcast, I have competed at my second USAPL Nationals. And in between there, I also competed at the Arnold, which was like highlight of my entire life. It was like the coolest experience I think I've ever had. I would love to talk about that later. Yeah, I have also since then dropped a weight class. So I was competing in the 100 plus. I'm now in sub 100 and working towards now dropping to 90, which has been really fun and challenging and crazy. So kind of like that has been its own challenge. And then just like living a lot of like personal life too. Like I bought a house, I started a new job.
Wow.
So just that's kind of like where I'm at right now. Does that answer your question?
That was great.
Yeah,
That was great.
okay.
And, there's so much to talk about. The Arnold in and of itself was, one of the coolest experiences.
My favorite. I'm wearing the hoodie that I got from the Arnold. I had to represent. Just like, I mean, it was cool because it was like, we had to have a qualifying dots right for it. And it was something that I had achieved. And then right after, I think it was state last year, I was like, let's do the Arnold and also drop a weight class. So like, it was just like so cool, like core memory for me, the Arnold.
Yeah. And that, that's super insightful. And I almost wonder, how does, for people who haven't done the Arnold, it's different in that it's in the expo and then it's like USAPL in the expo, so
Mhm.
it's kind of like got its own little area, and then it's got
Mhm.
its like stands, and then it's got the gates kind of like separating it from the main floor, and
Mhm.
there are all these people crowding around.
Mhm.
So it was like pretty filled out with spectators, and it's just such a different feel than like a nationals, which is in a really really big hall, really
Mhm.
really really big building, generally kind of tucked in the back, a lot of floor space, not a ton of chairs, not a ton of spectators. So I think like the Arnold felt more lively. There's like more energy. There's like
Mhm.
a lot of like really strong vibes from the competitors and just from like the expo itself. So maybe you can even detail what that was like from your standpoint, which is the person who's
Mhm.
on the platform.
Yeah. I would say like the first thing that stands out to me is I felt like I was the freak show. Which is why people go to the Arnold, right? Like they want to see freaky people doing freaky things. So like at nationals, the warm up area is blocked off from the
Mm,
audience. At the Arnold, I was on display the whole time. So like anybody walking by could stop and watch us warming up, moving weights in the back. And then you go and you transition into like the crowd that's actually like paid a ticket to like watch you lift. So like that was something that was really interesting to me, like really different that I was
yeah,
like, oh, this is, but it was exciting. It like really like fueled a fire
yeah,
underneath me and just like really got me hyped. Um, and I mentioned before that like you had to have a qualifying dots for it. So like competing with other girls that are also 450 plus dots was just like so cool. It was so fucking cool that I was like, man, I worked hard to be here. And then to
yeah.
see these girls like pushing me harder, it was just like I said, it's like one of the most rewarding experiences. It's a core memory. So
Well, and
it was cool.
that's what weightlifting used to be like at the Arnold before. So it used to be, um, it was I think like it ended with one session, and
Hmm.
it was all the best lifters, and then it was by Sinclair, so it was just
Hmm.
by whatever body weight
Right.
modifier, and you'd have 60-kilo lifters and then super heavyweights. It's like that's freaking awesome because it's
Yeah.
just people who are freaking
Yeah.
crazy strong competing
Yeah.
against one another, and it's
Yeah.
not like there's no separation of skill when you have the
Yeah.
same dots across
Yeah.
the board. So it's just like you would go out for like a 210 squat,
Hmm.
and then you get some 60 something for like a 170, and you're like, fuck,
Yeah.
holy shit. Like everybody's
Very
just
that.
squatting big
Yeah.
weights,
Yeah.
and pulling big weights. And that
Yeah.
was a ton of fun. And it's a ton of fun because the way you are as the way you end up becoming as a competitor is, okay, well then who's going to be a little bit ahead? Who's going to be a little bit behind? That's who you're competing against. You're not,
Hmm.
uh, competing against other people necessarily in your weight class. It's just like who are we trying to beat and kind of shift in front of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a ton of fun, and your family was there with the fat head signs, kind of waving them
Okay, but
around.
literally the worst picture of me in existence. My friend Rel from Worthington Pro Fitness printed it out, and it was like carrying it around, and I was like, oh my gosh. And the worst was when he gave it to Gino, and Gino was holding it behind
So
me, like
funny.
while I was benching. So I would like sit up and be like, right. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's me. A weight
Yeah.
class ago, that was me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was cool though.
That was great,
Yeah.
and you did really, really well. I think it was one of your best meets to date, and
Hmm.
I think that kind of brings us to this idea of like we've had two nationals eclipse since we did the last podcast. So if we rewind to 2023 nationals, do you still remember much about Memphis? Like, do you have thoughts you can kind of elaborate on, or was it more so like it was as it was fifth, as a super heavyweight, and
Hmm.
those were like the big kind of takeaways from it.
Yeah, I have always kind of like felt this way when I competed in the 100 plus is like these girls dominate me because I was always like a lighter super heavyweight. So I didn't really go into that meet with any expectations other than like just doing better, like just
Yeah.
lifting well. And the meet before that, I had actually bombed out on
Mm.
squats.
Yeah.
And so it
Holy
was really
shit.
tough. Yeah, like coming back into it, I was my goal was like, don't bum out, don't
Yeah.
miss any of your squats. Do like let's just have fun, right? Because I was feeling really like like really hard on myself and just like not feeling great. So, um, I also had not intentionally, but lost a few kilos going into that meet. So like in training, like squats weren't moving super well. My bench was okay, and I think deadlifts were doing okay too.
Mm,
So I was like really excited that I squatted 215 at that meet, and I was
yeah.
like, oh, maybe I am still strong. Like maybe I am. And I was like, maybe like 105 at that meet is what I weighed in, maybe like 102 to 105.
Mm,
Um, so like still feeling good. It was really exciting. And then I was in the second session. So for context, there's a primetime session at USAPL. It's usually top five of each weight class, depending on dots. And there was only two girls in my weight class that made it to the primetime session that year. So I was like, I had this like chip on my shoulder that I was like, I'm gonna show them, but also still have fun at the same time. And I ended up placing fifth, and
yeah.
I was like, I couldn't believe it because I was like, these girls are unbelievably strong. I mean,
Mm,
like Alexis Jones was in my weight class that year, and she totaled like 600 kilos or something like that, like something insane. Um, and so for me to be up there, I had this like sort of sense of like imposter syndrome of like, I can't even believe that I'm up here. I can't even believe that I totaled high enough to be up here when I look at like,
mm,
um, the fun part of super heavyweights is there's no cap on your weight.
yeah.
You can be as big as you want to be and squat as much as you want to squat. And I just like don't have a body to be big like that. So like
Mm.
again, I say like as being like a lighter super heavyweight at that time, I was like, what's gonna happen? So again, just like placing fifth, I just remember being like, like I'm so excited I did it. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, Joshua. One of my training journals, I used to write all of
Mm,
my training down before
yeah.
Coach Logic. I had written in there in the front, I had written like podium at nationals.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it was cool to like kind of have all of this come together of like, it was a pipe dream for me to place fifth and then to do it amongst all of these like
Mm.
incredible women. I was like, damn, maybe I'm kind of strong too.
Well, one thing I always remind you of, and you remind me of, and I think I even said it on the podcast the last time we chatted, is that you're the thing about people who are like exceptional, and the thing I kind of have to remind myself is you would say things, and then I would think like you would say something like here's a goal or something I'd like
Yeah.
to do or accomplish, and I would think to myself like, now if I were a reasonable person, I'd say that's not going to happen. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, yeah, I want to place at nationals, like because I mean the really beautiful thing about it though is like I worked with you since you started powerlifting, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like first real program to fifth at nationals. Like we kind of been there the entire time. So
Yeah.
I saw you when you were, you know, I'd watch you at Beyond Limits, you know, squatting 225, and I was like, huh. And then 275, it's like, okay. And then I think you squatted 300. I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's pretty strong. And then
Mm-hmm.
you know, pulled whatever and bench. And it's like, okay, you're going to be really good. But even in saying that, it's like, you don't realize what that means. You're like, yeah, you're going to be really strong. And you would tell me, like, well, I want to squat 200 kilos and 210 and 220 and 227. And I want to do all these things. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, sure. And I just kind of nod
Yeah.
along and smile and yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you did it, or as you do it, you know, you did it, and as you keep doing it, I'm just reminded that one, I'm also that person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure like I tell people what I do, and they're like, "What the fuck? Like, how the fuck do you do that?"
Yeah.
But you know, seeing that in someone you care about so much, and you've worked with for so long, and you worked, you know, to help facilitate it is just like a different type of experience and a different type of like rewarding in and of itself. And the one
Yeah.
thing you've shown me is how dreaming big and accomplishing or like hitting or going big, that's super viable.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think that like hesitation is unwarranted, but I think it's kind of opened me up to this idea of like, yeah, I think you'll place even higher next year. And I think like going down a weight class to 90, you're gonna get even stronger. Like I think those things you believe, I believe too. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I did initially.
Yeah. Well, I actually was gonna say, like, add something to that. In the beginning, it started of like kind of like what I said earlier, like I had a chip on my shoulder and I was like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like I would straight up say to you, like, I want to squat 405. And like our first couple of years training together, I was like, I want to squat 405. And you were like, okay, like, sure you will. And I was like, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna show you that I
Yeah.
can do it. Because one thing I don't like is when someone else tells me that I can't
Yeah.
do something, because I'm like, well, fuck you. Now I have to do it. And I have to do it better, like over and over. I have to do it better than you can. And part of that too was I wanted to squat more than you. Do you remember that? Do you
Yes.
remember those
Yes.
days?
Well, that's why when I said, yeah, squat 200 kilos and then squat 210, I
Yeah.
made sure I said 210 because that's
Yeah.
my PR squat.
Yeah. Um, and then actually after that meet that I bombed out, I switched to the version of like, I don't believe in myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that. And you were the one that actually like
Yeah.
the best example of this I have is going into the state meet, which was like 7 weeks after nationals. I'd squatted 215 and I was like, all right, I'm back. My best at that time was like 217.5. And we went through training. My squats were just like they were okay going into
Yeah.
state, and you know it was such a fast turnaround. And you loaded 220. You called, was it 220? I think it was 220. That's my state record.
Yeah. Yeah.
You loaded 220, and I was like, I don't know if I can make. I don't know if I can squat this. Like, are you sure? And then I did, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like if my coach believes that I have the ability to do it, like it's still hard to talk myself into that and say like if my coach programs it, I can do it, because there are days where I'm like, man, I feel like shit today, and I
Yeah.
can't lift for anything. But like if it's on my program and if it's an attempt selection that you're making, it's because you think I can do it. I've
Yeah.
proven that I can. I look good enough to do it, or you wouldn't have loaded it, right? You wouldn't have picked it. So it's funny that like we kind of like switched roles like 2 years into training, where I was like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah. And I
Maybe
think
that,
I think what that is, when we started out, it's like, I know you, and I, I wasn't as accomplished as a coach, but it's like, I know you as someone who, you're strong, but we don't realize about people who are strong and like hardworking and talented and really dedicated and all these things is, you know, um, when you get a little bit of success, you're like, okay, it's going to slow down at some point. It's like, it didn't
mm-hmm,
slow down. So it's like,
mm-hmm,
I had never understood that point at which things would kind of change and you would mature into this like very strong, very elite powerlifter.
yeah,
Um, and once that happened, I was like, okay, yeah, I want you to be the best in the nation. Like, I want you to
oh yeah,
take third and second and first. Like, I want you to be a
yeah,
national champion. It's like, okay, we can
yeah,
do that. It's like, it's just up to me to figure out how. So it was like a realization after you just kind of like blew past all of my expectations. And then it's like, okay, I'll recalibrate. It's like, okay, yeah, fuck thinking it's not going to happen. It's like, no, let's
yeah,
make it happen.
yeah,
And to kind of to your point, like I went to open powerlifting and yeah, you bombed out at regionals, and
mm-hmm,
then the next meet was literally like the best meet of your life. It was like
mm-hmm,
a 10 dot point, 12 dot point PR.
mm-hmm,
And then the meet after that was like another best meet of your life
mm-hmm,
where you squatted 220 and,
mm-hmm.
pulled 500
Pulled,
pounds.
yeah,
It was like insane. It's just
yeah,
insane.
yeah,
And you kind of forget, like, sometimes you're thinking about it all gets colored by training. You're like, yeah,
yeah,
training's been okay. It's fine. You kind of miss this and pull that.
mm-hmm,
And then you look at open powerlifting, you're like, you've gotten better year after year after year for a really, really long time. And
mm-hmm,
even when things like feel like they've slowed down, it's
mm-hmm,
like marginally.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the really exciting thing is going to be you kind of moving down to the 90 kilo class because your technique's going to be so much better. I mean, we've been putting a lot of work in on that. And I guess this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of a good point to kind of mention that. You've been putting so much work in on your technique and your training. And I feel like I've kind of done things differently that will have a big benefit. And I think you're always committed and dedicated to the process, always working really hard. So whatever we kind of stumble upon, we'll know if it's better or worse. But I'm really looking forward to it. So let's talk about the last nationals. You went from seventh in 2022 as a
Mm-hmm.
100 plus to fifth in 2023 as a 100 plus to fifth as a 100 kilo lifter. What was it like being in Salt Lake City? What was that meet like for you? It was prime time. Like, what was that
Yeah.
whole experience like?
Um, it was like an out of body experience, truly.
Yeah.
Like it was prime time was another one of those things that I wrote in my journal of like I want to compete at a prime time. And when they announced it, I was like, holy shit! Like I'm looking at the other girls that are in my weight class, and I was like, are they sure that they put this is not a mistake that they really want me out there? And it was so cool because it was like such a like I don't want to say cozy, but I can't think of another word. Like really just like close meet, and like we got to live with Casey, we got to live with Brenda, like some of the other like 100 and
Mhm.
100 plus girls, Gabby, Courtney Hopkins was there. So like seeing all of these girls that I see as like the best of the best, and I'm like, oh shit, am I also one of those? Like am I one of those girls too? So like that was part of it. And then also having our guy Max back there too was
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
new for me. So having someone who has, not that you don't have experience, Joshua, but it's
Yeah.
different. It's a different
Yeah.
type of experience than what you have, and like having him back there, like helping make attempt selections, and just kind of like he honestly was coaching you, coach me, which was
Mhm.
cool. So like that made me feel like a VIP too, of just like having someone who does have so much experience
Yeah.
back there with us. Um, and then like it was just like all so crazy, so surreal that like the meet itself was like a blur. Like I don't remember like a ton of the actual meet itself. Other than like I had fun. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily like one of my best meets, but it was so much
Mhm.
fun that I'm like, I don't think I would have changed anything. Like
Yeah.
I think it would have been cool to place higher, but like it didn't. I didn't, and like that's the performance I had that day, and that's what it is. Um, but it was just like such a cool experience, and I'm like, I want to do it again. I want to be in primetime again. I want to be
Yeah.
in the top five again. Like I want to do that because it lights a fire under your ass, and like you have someone who's like in the 90-kilo weight class that's pulling, way more than you are, and I'm like, damn, that's strong. Like that's
Yeah.
strong, and it's just like a cool. Like I love it. That's what I love about powerlifting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with all that. And there have been a few moments in my like life where I felt very validated.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of tell these all the time, but one, I was with Max. I think it was like American Open Finals, and we were like walking to the back room, and he was like, "Josh, you're one of the smartest people I know." I was like, "Fuck!" Like that means something. Like
Yeah,
people tell me I'm smart. Like I get I get a lot of compliments. Like
yeah,
I'm not gonna play like I'm an idiot. um, but it really means a lot coming from a guy where I I learned how to coach because of
yeah,
Max. Like
yeah,
I mean, like reading his work and then living with him.
yeah.
So like his opinion and his perspective holds a lot of weight. And then when we were coaching in the back with you,
Mm-hmm.
after we finish up, he just like, this is something that coaches probably don't get quite as much, but like he just kept telling me what a great job I did, what great calls I made. He's like, oh, that squat, like I wouldn't have called that. It was the
Yeah,
perfect number, like you dialed in.
yeah,
And that to me, him saying that, there's another really high achieving powerlifting coach who I was in the back with at the Arnold, and he was like, how many weightlifters do you have? How many powerlifters? I have like two or three powerlifters, like three or four, and mostly weightlifters. And he's like, oh, that's kind of surprising. I was like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, you should have way more powerlifters. Like, you're a great powerlifting coach. I'm like,
yeah,
huh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Like those things stick with me and remind me of like I do a great job, and I can get out of my own world and realize that. And the nationals was great because it helped showcase that. Like I know what
mm-hmm.
I'm doing. I'm not like a guy who happens to be there because you're really talented. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
both gotten there because we're good at what we do.
Yeah,
Um, and in prime time, it's just so much fun. It's just so
crazy.
cool. It's so
Yeah,
unique.
yeah,
The feel is so different, and like as much as people might say like anything negative, it's to me it was like one of the greatest experiences, coaching wise, and to be able to help you kind of do as well as you did, and it just lights a fire. It's like fuck,
yeah,
let's crush the next one. Like not like do well, let's fucking crush it.
yeah.
Um, so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time. I'm looking forward to the next meet, which will be the Arnold actually. So we have a really long time until that comes back around. That competition
Yeah.
cycle kind of completes itself.
Yeah.
And some of the things we're gonna work on really is bench press, and kind of the funny thing about bench is I remember I used to bench like really narrow grip, like very very close grip. I was like, we got to take it out and go as wide as we can, as wide as we can. We bench like that for a long time, and you bench 117.5, which is like that's pretty good. Um, but it's like, okay, we need to get back up there at 90
Yeah.
kilos and not just like,
Hmm.
well, we did it once, so that's as good as we're ever going to be.
Yeah.
So what we did, and I use this with other powerlifters, is like a lot of close grip work to increase the range of
Hmm.
motion, which just like kind of increases the work on the muscles.
Hmm.
And say like, hey, let's double down on that and see what happens, because we've never really done that. And I know what we have done, and I know what hasn't worked. So
Hmm.
let's try something different.
Hmm.
Um, because we tried a bunch of like pin presses and incline bench, and I'm like, okay, let's just do a lot of close grip, something you're really strong at. So that means you're going to use a lot of weight. It's going to be a bigger range of motion. I think your technique looks pretty good, so we
Hmm.
can kind of like triangulate all those pieces. How do you feel about your bench press? I'm sure you're like, it's fine, and I kind of okay with it, but it's annoying.
I wish that they would let me do a squat deadlift me only. That's how I feel about my bench press. um, yeah, I mean it's been like a back and forth. Like I have like an on and off like relationship with bench press. That meet that that I benched 117.5, I was like,
Yeah,
holy shit. Like I first of all, I can't believe that I got that because that was hard. That was really
yeah,
hard. And I benched that, and then like not long after that, I actually hurt my shoulder, and I
yeah,
was like barely benching 100 kilos. So I was also cutting, so like that kind of happens. But I felt like I had this feeling, and I have this feeling a lot about bench that I'm like it's hopeless. Like I can't do anything about it. I'll never have a strong bench. Um, and I will actually say, like, getting back into it after nationals this past year, I mentioned this to you the other day of like it's been hard. It's been hard to
yeah.
get back into. I'm doing so much volume right now on bench. I think every single
Yeah,
day I have a bench accessory or like
yeah,
some type of like upper body accessory. But today I was actually doing my tempos, and for the first time since I got back into training, I'm doing a 420 close grip or like mid grip bench.
yeah.
And I was like, damn, I feel kind of strong today. Like this bench feels
Nice.
good.
Yeah,
And like as much as we hate tempos and we hate doing them, they're so good for us. And like
yeah.
that's kind of like the feeling that I had, that I was like, damn, this
Nice.
sucks. I'm like at the on my chest, like resting, and I was like, but this is really good for me because I feel so strong right
Yeah,
now. And I was only doing 75 kilos, but it's more than I did last week. And
yeah,
like that is saying something. So um that's how I feel about my bench.
yeah. That's awesome,
Yeah.
and that's great. And we have like a lot of historical kind of like landmarks numbers wise, but I think when you have a lot of experience training, you can kind of tell when you're getting better. You're like,
Hmm.
I just know things feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you can't necessarily put it together, or like you don't have the opportunity, you're like, I just know I'm stronger,
Yeah.
which is always a good signpost. And we had a lot of changes. This kind of like this speaks to the point of like staying with a coach for a really long time. You know, I love the story of Julie Fishman. Like,
Yeah.
gets into powerlifting. I coach her from like not ever have never having a powerlifting coach.
Hmm.
And I remember watching her deadlift at like this max out event. She pulled like 250 or
Hmm.
255. It was like 250 pounds. And it was like the biggest grind you'd ever imagine, ever
Hmm.
seeing. And
Hmm.
I think she made it. And I started coaching her shortly after, and she, pulled 265 and then 275 and climbed up. And I kind of coached her to where she had like peaked as a powerlifter, and she was squatting like 112.5, benching like 57, and then I think she pulled 147.
Hmm.
She was pretty strong. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
strong. She had Isla, her child, um, and took some time off, got back into
Hmm.
lifting, and like tweaked her back powerlifting. So she wanted to try weightlifting. Qualified for the Arnold, which is
Hmm.
like fuck
Unreal.
crazy. Good for
Yeah.
you. Competed at the Arnold. wanted to get back into powerlifting to like compete with you, like lift with
Hmm.
you, and I think she's
Hmm.
getting kind of sick of weightlifting.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, she's like as strong as she's ever been, like by a
Blew
large
up.
margin, like insane.
Unbelievable.
Squatted
Yeah.
270 pounds. I just mentioned
Yeah.
like when I first started working with her, she barely pulled 250. So she's like
Yeah.
out pulling her out squatting her deadlift by like
Yeah.
20 pounds, 25
Yeah.
pounds. Looks great, super confident, moves super well.
Yeah.
She matured, kind of late. Like she's hitting like a second kind of like
Yeah.
second like stride in
Yeah.
her powerlifting. You have to try a lot and like play around and see what doesn't work
Yeah.
and see what does and say like
Yeah.
we found something that works. We're gonna run it until it doesn't, and then we're gonna have
Yeah.
to change it until it works again. And like the time between those periods, it's kind of hard to figure out. So like
Hmm.
you can run something for like a few years and then it stops working and then it takes another like year to kind of get back on track,
Hmm.
and that sucks, because you
Yeah.
try different things, you tweak something here and there, you maybe try training more, you try training less, you try different techniques, and eventually when you find what works though, you're like it was worth it. But like
Hmm.
the shit I had to eat for a very long time
Hmm.
didn't taste good, and I put salt
Hmm.
on it and it still tasted bad.
Yeah.
um so I think we're kind of at a point where it's like, I think we're, your deadlift's always been there though. Like I think you're going to pull 5 at 90 and it's going to be like freaky. But, we just had to eat a lot of shit to try and
Yeah.
figure out what's going to work. And your bench just fucking
Yeah.
nosedived and just went
Yeah.
to hell in a handbasket. And
Yeah.
I think we're kind of on the other side of that. And I'm
Yeah.
super excited for it. And you're going to cut down to 90. And I think
Yeah.
we're going to bring a better package overall, not just like,
Yeah.
by body weight.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe talk even a little bit about your squat. So with your squat, what tends to happen is kind of round over and lose position.
Yeah.
And I thought for a long time, like, oh, well, you'll front squat and we'll just do tempo back squats. It's like that worked a little bit. Front squats didn't.
No.
Front squats did not help.
Yeah.
You did front squat 150.
I
Uh,
sure did.
you almost front squat 160, which is just
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I'm bragging. I'm bragging for you right now. You almost front squat
Yeah.
160
It
at
means
like.
nothing to me because
Uh, to
I
me, that
front
means
squat.
a lot, Danny.
Don't ever put front squat in my program because both times we ran front squat cycles, I hurt my back.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Front squat 159 at like 100 and something kilos body weight. It's
yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
But we tried that. It didn't work. We did tempo stuff for a long time. We kind of ran that dry. We just did like tempo and normal squat, like high rep squat.
Well, I have to interrupt you
No,
and
please do.
mention the program that I was on probably from like 2021 through midway 2023. Do you remember that? I was on the same fucking program
Yeah,
forever
yeah.
because it just worked.
It
Like it
works.
just worked. I was
Yeah,
doing tempo and pause squats,
yeah,
pulling from the blocks. I was also doing a lot of sumo work at that
yeah,
time. So like that was crazy. And then at some point it just stopped working. Like
yeah,
it didn't work anymore. And I remember being shocked because people in my gym were like, "Oh, Tuesday, you're gonna squat today." Like
yeah,
they knew my schedule, because I had just done the same thing for so long, and then it was broken. So then we needed to fix it, and I
yeah,
think that's where whereas like we ate shit for from 2023 halfway 2023 through to where we are right
yeah,
now. And
yeah,
I think you're right. We're getting better, and we did try a lot of things. We tried low bar squatting because I'm a high
yeah,
bar girly. I tried it and that's where I hurt my shoulder. And I was like, hey, let's not do this. I don't like that. I don't want to do it anymore. Went to the doctor. They were like, you have bursitis. Like you're all messed up in there. So just like, rehabbing and also still trying to be strong while doing that. And
mm,
you as a coach also have to adapt my
yeah,
program so that I can still lift and feel good and not like further injure myself. Then I can't and I'm out of commission completely. So it's a song and dance. It's a balance of not only what your goals are, but my goals for me and like current situation and like not only like how are you feeling today, but like how are you gonna feel 5 years
yeah,
from now, right? Because
yeah,
like I could lift myself into the ground and be so
yeah,
injured that I could never come back. But that's not what you or me want, for my journey. So yeah, and now we are taking what worked
Yeah.
and what didn't work, and we're piecing it all together.
Yeah.
And something that I wanted to mention is we took out my last training block. So when I first started lifting with you, I was a conventional puller and I was
Yeah.
bad. I was a
Yeah.
bad conventional puller, but I was like, this is how it's done. This is what I knew. And then you talked me into sumo. My fucking squats blew up. If you look at that
Yeah.
meet on open
Yeah.
powerlifting from the meet right before 2022 nationals, my
Yeah.
squat went up like 40 pounds or something like that.
Wow.
Um, so I don't know if that's true, but it was
Yeah.
crazy. Um, then we switched back as I started
Mm.
cutting back to sumo, or sorry, back to conventional. So it was like conventional sumo back to conventional. And it was going so well as I was cutting. I actually asked you, can we just take sumo out completely?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to put all of my eggs into conventional because it was feeling so
Yeah.
good. And I really didn't lose any strength on my deadlift
Mm.
as I lost weight, which is fucking crazy. Um, in fact, in training, I pulled 496, I think, and my best
Yeah.
all time is 501. So, like, not exactly, but pretty close. And I was thinking about this. I think you and I had this conversation that I was like, I think that my squat suffered a little bit because we took some of the
Mm.
sumo work out of my program.
Yeah.
And now here we are
Yeah.
with sumo again and conventional. I'm doing a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's super insightful. Like that kind of arc of doing conventional, but I think sumo could be easier, like easier, more efficient, so we can lift more weight. And then it became, yeah, but conventional could get your back stronger, and if you need a stronger back, to squat more weight because you stay very upright, keep it in your legs. Let's kind of go and let's implement some of that. And then it became, well, let's do all of that, but then you're not getting. I don't think you're getting like that same stimulus for your legs. So it's like, that's what training is, like a lot of
Yeah.
trade-offs, and you really have to figure out the balance of it and then the timing of those trade-offs. And it all worked to some extent. Yeah, you pulled 485 conventional at what's that? Like
3 kilos. Yeah.
95 kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
97, 98 kilos, something like that.
Yeah.
Like something insane. Like really strong, pulling really big weights, but the squat really took a hit. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we put in some like sumo stance, and I think that's like a lot of quad, and that's a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
kind of sit low and pull upright. And
Mm-hmm.
the way we've been structuring it to try and like bridge that gap of, because what it used to be is you'd have a day allocated to like one variation and then you have a day allocated to another. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine, but you lose the opportunity to like bridge that gap between a variation and the competition movement. So now instead of just doing like a tempo day and a high rep day, it's like we'll do some tempo work and then we'll put something heavier on the bar and try and grease that same groove with like real time speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be theoretically smart. We'll have to see how it pans out because I haven't really tried it with anybody else but you. I mean, I do that with weightlifting a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
we'll do some like pulls and then we'll do some deadlifts after. Pulls are going to be lighter, faster, more technical, and then we'll do some heavier deadlifts. So I want to try that with squats. We're trying that with pulls. And I just want to see how that tempo work translates, because your deadlift when you pull the tempo, it looks fucking incredible. Like
Yeah.
if people don't know how to lift, if they span that spectrum of like don't know how to lift to like pretty good and they need to tighten up their technique, like a 303 tempo just kind of works all of that out. So I would say those have really been helping. And then we've done that like sumo stance,
Mm-hmm.
narrow sumo stance deadlift,
Mm-hmm.
and then followed that up with like normal speed. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have a day with safety bar squats with a tempo and then full speed. And I know you hate that movement and you're not very good at it, but I feel like it's going to be really beneficial because we get that same like stimulus as a front squat without having to put you in that really weird, like kind of claustrophobic front rack
Mm-hmm.
position.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a day where it's like purely speed and technique focused with the squat, which is we're going to get a really low box, just grease the groove with high quality reps and just make that day feel good, not feel like every day is kind of killing you a little bit. And then RDLs. We really want to push those RDLs up because I think that is going to be almost like a faster route to getting your back and hip stronger than a conventional deadlift.
Hmm. That
So
day that I have those RDLs is actually my favorite day right now. I do my
mm,
safety bar squats, which I know I bitch and moan about them a lot, but like I like to do hard things, which is
yeah,
why I
yeah,
powerlift because I'm
yeah,
like it's fun to be wrong and be
yeah,
bad, for a little bit, not always.
yeah.
And then I do my RDLs, snatch grip RDLs, which are so fucking hard. I didn't know they were going to
Mm,
be so hard. Just with like my grip, just like a little bit wider.
mm.
Um, and what else do I do that day? GHD,
Oh yeah,
which are those are hard too.
yeah,
And what's the other movement I do? Oh, hamstring, leg
yeah, yeah,
curls. I do leg
yeah.
curls. So like I think the next day, maybe on Thursday, I told you, or on Friday, this past week, I told you like my entire like from my traps down to my like my knees, the back of my knees is sore. It's
Wow.
sore today.
Yeah,
And it's fun. Or is that my
yeah,
tempo squat day? Whatever day it is.
yeah,
It's right. It's just like fun to be bad and
yeah.
like continuously get coached on something of like, the cue that you gave me was like keep your weight like more on like the front of your
Mm,
feet when you're in the
yeah,
bottom of the squat, and I would just like couldn't compute it. And actually Julie Fishman gave me a really helpful
yeah.
cue that really like connected all the dots for me. And yeah, I hope that all the work we're doing now gives me a strong back, because I feel like my back has gotten bigger as I'm cutting, and maybe it's just that I'm cutting and I can see more muscle now, but like my back looks huge right now.
Yeah, no, I think you've gotten a lot stronger, and just a programming point for people listening. The way the session's broken up is you have like a technical movement, slower. You have a competition movement, or like a variation without the constraints, a little bit heavier. And then when we go into the accessory exercises, especially with a block this far out from the Arnold, like we're 20 odd weeks out, like we're ways away.
Yeah.
It's going to be very muscle focused. So like you're going to see a hamstring curl seated or lying, and it's like I just want the hamstrings to be targeted. We don't need to do anything like single leg RDL. We don't need to do anything that's like more complex or more loaded. It's like I just want the hamstring to get fucking smashed.
Hmm.
Um, Same with your hips and back. It's like I just want it to get smashed. We don't have to make it transferable to a
Hmm.
movement. And this far out, we're going to have more volume with that stuff because it's like we just want to hammer those body parts in those positions. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it translates. All this stuff takes time. So we almost have like a 6 week block with these exercises. We had 2 weeks that are like intros, getting used to it, and
Hmm.
then 4 weeks of kind of ramping up. So by that like fifth week, we should kind of have a good sense of where you're at, how you're feeling, how you're moving. And if you dial in the safety bar squat, I have a really good feeling about that. And then I think the RDLs, like I think those are going to be big, just big movements, like big
Yeah.
movers. So I'm looking forward to that. So kind of thinking about where we're at with training, we talked about nationals, we talked about the Arnold, talked kind of about moving weight classes. Like, what are we looking at heading forward? What do you want to do? What does 2025 look like for you? What are some of your goals? Like, just talk to us about your future in powerlifting.
Yeah. Um, I have a feature request for Coach Logic. Give me a section that I can put goals into for the year,
Hmm.
because I don't have a notebook anymore. That's all on my phone. I would say I want to compete at 90 and see what it feels like, how I feel. Initially we made that decision to cut for like general overall like health issues, like reasons, and like longevity, and like I just want to feel comfortable, and like I don't have to give up strength when I want to cut and lose weight. So I'm really excited to see what kind of athlete I can be at 90 kilos. Um, Obviously, I want to keep competing at a high level. I want to compete at the Arnold again. I want to compete at nationals. I want to place, first, but like top three would be fucking cool. To place top
Hmm.
three in the 90 kilo weight class at nationals, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, 2025.
Ooh, I've never been
Um,
to Atlanta.
I've never been to Atlanta either. Um, I don't know anything about it, so
Me
we'll
either.
see. Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, just kind of like finding like this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but finding a body that feels good.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't feel great at 100 plus. I was very strong, but I was having like trouble
Yeah.
sleeping, right? Like just like ongoing health issues. I feel pretty good at 100, like sub 100, but I want to feel great. So I want to feel really great in a body. And that's not something that I've ever been able to do in my entire life, inside and outside of lifting. So that I think is like top priority. Um, yeah, do really well at my meets. Like keep, I want to like
Yeah.
the goal eventually is to go pro.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll give you like a crazy goal right here, Joshua. You're gonna be like, well, I don't know about that, but I would love to achieve a 500 plus dots like one
Yeah.
day, you know,
Yeah.
and whether that's next year or the year after. Like I think that's cool. My best is 467, so 475 is the like minimum to go pro in women's and USAPL. I've always wanted my pro card, which is fucking cool, and right now feels like unattainable. But like that would be rad. Um, yeah, I think that is pretty much like where my mind is at. Like that's where I see 2025 for me. And the rest will just be gravy.
Yeah. I'm actually, I have dots calculator pulled up because I'm trying to like put some numbers in. So I think like a tentative total we could do. So I think you could do. I really think you could do 550 at 90, and
Mm-hmm.
that might be like a little generous on the lighter side.
550
And that's a
total.
four. Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
490 dots, and I think that'd be like a 220 squat, a 220 pull, and like a 110 bench, which actually you
Yeah.
could probably do more than that. So
Yeah.
if we say 560, that's 499. So you do 562.5. That's 501. So what that tells me is like the goal in the notebook is 562.5 at 90,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
500 dots. That means you squat 220, you pull, 230, 225, 227, and then you bench like 112, 115,
Yeah.
which you've done those lifts. You
Yeah.
just put them back together at a different body
Yeah.
weight. One thing that I've struggled with as a coach, and I think you might have struggled with a little bit, is these like common sayings or common bits of wisdom and knowledge in sport.
Mm-hmm.
People will say to you, "Oh, but you've lost weight, therefore you should lose strength. So you shouldn't be frustrated or upset." But it's like, yeah, I get it. Like I get it. Like I'm smart. Like I know that if we lose weight, like it's harder to maintain strength. But the point is to get stronger. So
Right.
like those common like ideas and bits of wisdom, I think can feel defeating. And
Mm-hmm.
I think another one, and you've probably heard this, like, oh, if you're cutting or if you're losing weight, like you should expect to be hungry, or you
Mm-hmm.
should, these things that are like kind of common knowledge, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they're always helpful because, like, yeah, maybe on average, depending on the calorie deficit or maybe how long you've been dieting, how much weight you've lost, like all that
Mm-hmm.
nuance is going to lead you to then have like certain amount of hunger throughout the day. How do you mitigate it with your diet? Um, so I always think on the kind of like you know positive side of I think you can get stronger. I think I've been cutting too, and it's like I've been crushing it. I've been like without too much struggle.
Yeah.
Um, so I like to think you're going to be able to put together a 562 total at 90, and then that would be, let's see, your best total today. I don't know these in kilos, but it's
It's
1234.
560. Yeah,
Yeah, there
560
you
my
go.
best
That's
total.
a, let's go.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
PR total.
Yeah.
Two weight classes lighter.
Yeah.
I think you can do it, and I think really
Yeah.
what it's going to take is just at that point the really really small differences make the biggest differences.
Yeah.
So like we can't just allow things to kind of be okay because it's fine, and
Yeah.
say like, yeah, but it's fine, it's passable. It's like it's got to be good. And it's got to be
Yeah.
like locked in. So I think if you take it with that mindset, like it's the 5 kilo mindset. It's like I'm going to do this today, but I should add 5 kilos to that, and
Mm-hmm.
not always, but like it's kind of that mindset. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when you can kind of lock into that in a sustainable way, that kind of gives you that extra like mental edge, of I don't need to do enough, I need to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously in the context of a sustainable program that is well suited for you as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I'm looking forward to
Yeah. I am too. You have me ready to like run through a wall right now. I'm like,
it.
oh my God, let's go train right now. We
Yeah,
have some weights in the garage. Let's go hit them.
yeah,
Yeah, I think what's cool about like you have actually given me the tools, Joshua, um, for better nutrition. Where like previously I was kind of just like intaking whatever. Like I was
Yeah.
just like whatever, like my husband wants to go hit up Press Grill, which is a great spot in Columbus, by the way. I'll be like, yeah,
Shout
let's
out.
go. Like shout out, sponsor us, Press Grill. Um, it was just like whatever felt good. And although I was like strong and this and that and the other, like I have like different priorities now. So if I'm like, okay, I'm prioritizing my protein intake right now, that's what keeps me strong, right?
Mm.
Like those are
Yeah.
the tools that I need to
Yeah.
keep being strong. And that's why my deadlift has maintained so much strength. Um, I do truly think that like the reason that my squat and bench kind of tanked is because of it's shitty injury. And
Yeah.
I have this thought like reoccurring that I'm like, I'm still that same strong girl that I was,
Yeah.
right? That totaled 540 at this body weight. Like that's crazy. Um, and yeah, and like you build it and you just are better than the day you were better than you were before, and you just keep that every day. And one last thought on that is do your fucking accessories. Do your accessories.
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of fun with them actually
Yeah.
since I kind of got back into after nationals. Like I took a couple weeks off and then I came back, and I have been pushing them pretty hard, especially like my leg extensions because those are fun. But like just going and then like
Yeah.
you just feel good. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do more weight this week than I
Yeah.
did last week, and maybe it's 10 pounds, maybe it's 2 pounds. Maybe it's like one more rep than you did last week. But if it as long as it's more than what you did before, I think that's like when it makes sense. Obviously, not every single time you're not going to be able to do that, but like when it makes sense for you and your body and your where you're at, like keep doing it. And that's the kind of shit that keeps me going. That like, we could have like after regionals in 2023, I could have been like, I'm done. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
do this anymore. But instead it was like, let's get better.
Yeah.
Actually, like let's squat low,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
also get stronger.
Yeah.
And we did. And something that I think about is at my heaviest, I think my best squat was maybe like 212.
Hmm.
212 and a half. And I squatted 220 about
Yeah.
10 kilos lighter.
Yeah.
So like you can lose weight and actually be stronger than you were before. So whatever people say, don't believe it. I don't know.
No,
Do
I
whatever
think
you
those are
want.
all really really valid points. And
Yeah.
one thing I would like to think, and as as a coach, it's really hard to say like, well, what specific part of the program is having the direct effect and really really helping. And like you can kind of figure that out, and you can have best guesses, but like if you really push your accessory work and you really get as much out of as you can, and you really push the quality of the main lifts and you get as much out of them as you can, if you have success, you don't have to wonder why. You just get to
Yeah.
celebrate, you
Yeah.
know, because when you're up on the podium or when you hit a PR, you're not thinking like, man, it was the rows I did. That's why I hit the PR.
Yeah.
You're thinking that was fucking awesome. I did that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I got to do that in front of my family. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad I got to do that when it mattered most. You're
Yeah.
not thinking like, I'm really glad I put 5 pounds on
Right.
my belt squat. Which,
Yeah.
but like those are the things that if they can make a difference, fucking make a difference. Don't just
Yeah.
like, and this is me just talking to people kind of generally. It's like, don't just let it be a thing that exists. It's like, let it be a contributing part of training.
Yeah.
So it can have an impact. And then when it has an impact, you don't have to know why. You just get to celebrate.
Yeah.
I'd rather be celebrating and not know why than like kind of just bummed I didn't work hard, or I
Yeah.
kind of just let things slip through the cracks. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think training the way it's constructed now is going to be really effective. I'm excited to see how things kind of roll from week to week, and I'm looking forward to I'll see you in, I think it's like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm going to see you November 23rd.
Yeah.
Because Julie Fishman's competing, and which, by the way, like, yeah, she's blown up, but she's fucking been killing it. So I'm super
Yeah.
excited to watch her compete again. And I want her to squat 125. I think squatting 275 pounds at like 125-pound body weight is just kind of
Yeah.
crazy. That's kind of freaky.
Insane.
She's like low key strong. She's been getting pretty jacked. Like we've been doing a
Yeah.
ton of accessory work, ton of volume, and yeah, she's great. She's
Yeah.
so awesome, and she kind of like directly but indirectly gave me a quote, which I screenshotted and told her that I absolutely love and wanted to share and like tell people about. And I'll pull it up. And it was just like super insightful. And she's one of those people who, you know, she's grown so much since we've known her
Mm-hmm.
that like one of the most rewarding things is me saying something where I'm like patting myself on the back and she says something like equally as badass. And I'm like, wow, like that goes hard.
Yeah.
Like that gets me super jacked. And so what I said was, you know, she was talking about her squats and I was like, well, you won't regret these squats when you smoke 125. And she said, no, I won't. I never regret the work I put in when it gets difficult. And it's like, you're fucking right. You don't. You've been training your ass off for 8 years. Like, there's
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind. You embrace the work and embrace the difficulty and embrace like the challenge. And that's like one of the things I really value about, you know, her and you and the people I work
Yeah.
with is how much you guys commit to the process
Yeah.
and how hard you guys work to see
Yeah.
it through and make us both look like we know what we're doing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we could do a whole episode on how we feel about Julie Fishman,
oh, we
separate
could.
from this. Yeah.
We could.
Don't even invite her. Let's just talk about how much we love her.
I know. I
Um,
know.
and like also an episode about like community and like lifting and why it's so important and all those things. But yeah, I think like we're both in a place where we just like respect so much of like how you coach us and like how you treat us as like human beings and you know like sometimes we're having a hard time. I think I told you the other day I was like I feel so bad and what you responded to me was just do your best and that's what I needed to hear in that day in that moment and it wasn't even that like I physically felt bad but it was you know I'm transitioning into a new time in my life and I'm really struggling with it and I just needed like a friend and
Yeah.
to be met with like hey it's okay and actually it gave me enough fuel to do what was on my program and not
Yeah.
you know not to say like sell myself short but like I was actually able to push a little bit
Yeah.
more and like that is so important in having like doing hard things and the capacity that we do them is also needs to be met with like tenderness and gentleness and kindness and empathy and all of those things so
Well, what you
yeah
learn, what I've realized is I can be that like, you know, rah rah, like you gotta pay the man, like whatever. I can yell
yeah
at football players. I can
yeah
if I need to do that, I can do that.
yeah
What I've realized though is like when you have a group of people who really, really want to work and really, really want to do well and really care about how they do, I don't I don't have to do that. I don't
yeah
want to do that. I don't
yeah
want to tell you like, come on, toughen up. It's just
yeah
not. I mean, that's not real. And then
yeah
like, and in reality, like it doesn't matter anyways. Like, if you don't want to fucking powerlift, don't powerlift.
right
But like, but if we're gonna do it, like I know you're gonna work really hard, and I know you're gonna commit
yeah
yourself. So like, how can I support you in a way that's supportive of you as a person who will do that,
yeah
um, regardless of how you feel and regardless of the circumstance?
right
I recognize that. You know, I know you're going to try your best, and it's like I'm not going to just lay it on to you or anyone else.
yeah
And even if I get frustrated, it's like my frustration is more of a me thing because I'm not supporting people well enough in ways they
yeah
need to be supported to succeed. So it's
yeah
like, okay, this frustration's internally focused. If I did a better job, you would be able to overcome this. Um, or I'd be able to communicate with you in a way that would help.
yeah
So I not that I'm just not that type of coach, and anyone who works with me knows that because I'm just
yeah
super soft and like
yeah
just I'm gonna say slay and you know like you know everything like
boots the
that.
house down.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. I'm just gonna say it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I'm gonna say shit like you got this, like you work your ass off for stuff,
yeah,
and you know it's well deserved, or
yeah,
hey, this is just a bump in the road. Like you're tougher than this, and you're gonna see it through. Like you've done that time and time again. It's like those things are all true, and I think being able to hear that and having someone to say it is
yeah.
going to be stronger than that voice in your head, which is saying the opposite. You
That's
know,
right.
which is telling you
Yeah,
you can't or you won't, or it's too challenging or too tough. So
yeah.
I
And,
don't. That's my
yeah.
coaching style. That's my coaching
Well, and
philosophy.
what that does too on like the other side of that, like on a receiving end, is like you're putting in like currency into an emotional piggy bank as well. So like you're taking care of your athletes like emotionally as well, and like and then when you do need to give like maybe
Yeah,
you do need to have like a toughen up
yeah,
conversation. It's like fuck, he's right, right? Like
yeah,
you have said it to me many times of like fix this, you need to do this, and maybe like to you, you're like I'm not being mean about it
yeah,
necessarily, but like I can perceive it that way. And because you have spent that time of like supporting me and encouraging me and doing all those things that when you do say it, I'm like, he's right. And I should
yeah,
do that. And I do need to tighten up and I do need to go slower and I do need to
yeah,
pause longer at the bottom
totally.
or whatever it is, right? Because at the end of the day, we have the same goal in mind,
Yeah,
which is to be stronger.
yeah,
And like I can ignore your feedback, but who does that benefit?
yeah.
Fucking
That's
nobody.
actually like really profound, and I'm gonna tell everybody that, like who I coach in high
Yeah.
school, because it's true. It's like
Yeah.
if you can see it from the perspective of us wanting the same things,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, it's like a selfish thing. I
Yeah.
want what you want. I don't want what I want, because if I wanted what
Yeah.
I want, I'd I'd be kicking my feet up, reading
Right.
philosophy, like drinking
Yeah.
an americano.
Yeah.
I want what you want, which is
Yeah.
success, and
Yeah.
whatever that means. Like success can be fun. Success can be like um, succeeding in something that was challenging. Success can be, doing something you never thought you could do.
Yeah.
But it's like I want what you want. If you realize that, you realize like everything I intend to do is aligned with that interest as best as I understand it.
Yeah.
It's not skewed one way. It's not skewed another. This is just my interpretation of that.
Yeah.
So everything comes from that same place. So I really like that. I'm going to use that. I appreciate it. Um, and hopefully people who are listening, kind of can connect now with you and your journey, and I'm sure they see themselves in your situation and what you've gone through, what you're going through, and what you've done. And if they want to see more of it and see like the X's and O's and the day to day, where can they go to kind of watch all that?
At Danny Lifts Heavy, DANI. Danny Lifts Heavy. Yeah, I'm not I haven't been like posting super avidly like on the grid, but like on my stories I'm posting a lot of like the work and my
Yeah,
tempos and tempo SSB and tempo close grip, narrow grip, medium grip,
yeah.
all of that. So yeah, Danny Lifts Heavy is where I post everything.
Yeah, awesome. And if people are interested in keeping up to date with what I'm doing, which is just again, it's posting a lot of other people's lifting, which I find more impressive and interesting than my own. It's Josh underscore Phil WL. That's PHIL on Instagram. You can follow the podcast and what I do at Philosophical Weightlifting and everywhere else. You can also go to coachlogic.com, sign up for the beta to use the app. You can also read all of the articles I've either written or edited or been a part of kind of curating for the site. Great stuff, like really, really good stuff. Really thoughtful. We have an article about programming from Derek, he's a guy I actually coach. I was like lucky enough to do the editing for that article, so it's on the site. I've written a few that have been posted recently. So go check that out at coachlogic.com. Very sad that Max could not join us. He's here in spirit. I can see some floating Nike Air Monarchs above me. And hopefully he'll be with us next time. But until then, we'll catch you on another episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast.